Okay, so we just wrapped up the first quarter of 2022. At the end of last year, at 2021, we saw insane price increases across the market.
Yes.
We saw low inventory, but in a funny way, at the end of the year, we also saw a little bit of the market catching its breath, where we saw a couple properties sit on the market for longer than normal. Prices seemed to stabilize for a bit. That changed for quarter one. So, what happened? What changed in the first quarter?
I'm kind of with you in your response. Yeah. It's sort of like, we're not sure. These are unprecedented times. I mean, when have we ever gone through this quick of a change in a marketplace? We have documented a number of transactions where we see property values of residential homes that have gone up 30% every year for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And now you look at the change in interest rates. You could get a fixed mortgage for 2.75% last year. Now you're looking at 5.5%. So you've got a 30% increase in values, and now you have almost a 90% increase in interest rates. Boy, that's a lot of pressure over a short period of time and a lot of change in our market. So I think we're in for some more big changes this year.
And I think maybe the increase in prices and the increase in the interest rate is spurring buyers to, let's buy now before the interest rates go up significantly more and the prices go up more and everything that's on the market is sold.
Yes, for those who can afford to buy now.
Yeah.
I think the very unfortunate situation is the number of people out there who've been trying to buy a house for the last year, have been outbid a number of times, are frustrated, and now their affordability has dropped substantially over the course of the last 6 months.
Right, so I mean, there's only so much you can really take out from a lender. So when you add in the increase in pricing, the increase in the interest rates, your buying power has dropped dramatically.
Yes. And my concern is how much that impacts really our local residents. We continue to see a large influx of people from California and Texas and other markets where their property values are already substantially higher than Santa Fe. They're coming here feeling like this is pretty affordable, while it's the locals who are feeling the sticker shock and the difficulty of being able to get into a place.
So we compared in this report Q1 of last year, 2021, versus Q1 of this year in 2022. My rationale for that was because typically there's some seasonality with our market. So in the summer, there's more homes available. There seems to be more buyer activity. And then in the winter, I mean, understandably, people maybe don't want to move during the holidays and so forth. You don't see as much activity. So comparing just the quarter over quarter seems like a good idea to have the apples and apples. So looking at just the residential side, so we have almost 11% fewer properties sold, and the pricing was up 16%. So that seems like the market is still tightening, and we've been saying that for 3 years now. Is that possible? It can tighten any further?
You know, we didn't think that was possible last year, and here we are, where we have already seen that happen yet again. I think it takes such a long time to overcome that and turn things around with new construction that I think we will continue to see this kind of pressure on the market. I think our inventory is going to continue to diminish probably until next year. I think next year we'll start to see that turn around with some new construction really starting to have an impact. Land sales are starting to pick up more.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot more builders wanting to do specs in this market.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, land sales. Interestingly, I have in the past 10 days gotten 3 properties under contract, 2 listings and 1 buyer of mine, and I am not seeing the massive quantities of offers. On the 2 listings, we had 1 offer each. With my buyers, they were one of 2 offers. Mm-hmm. And asking around, I'm seeing that other people are experiencing the same thing. So I'm wondering if buyers are starting to back off because of the interest rates and because of the acceleration in prices.
Or just burnout, right?
Well, yeah,
You know,
that's
if you've
it.
made 20 offers over the last 6 months and haven't won anything, you might decide, okay, this is time to sit back and wait. And that can in itself have an effect on pricing.
And I know of several instances where buyers have completely left our market out of frustration.
Yeah.
They tried to buy a house several times, lost several times, and got fed up and said, fine, Santa Fe's not the place for us. We are out of here. So we're starting to see pushback from buyers to the competitive nature of the bidding, to the pricing, to interest rates. So that's also leading to the diminishment in transactions. Buyers are saying enough.
So existing sales are challenging, particularly if you already own a home, but you still need to get a mortgage to purchase, let's say, a different home in the same market, right? So to do that transaction, you have to sell yours first. That's a contingent sale, which we talk about in this industry, and that typically isn't winning in this very cash-heavy purchase offer scenario. So let's talk about land. Number of units are down 20% in terms of sold units.
That surprises me there. Before I took a look at the stats, I was thinking that the land sales had gone up because we see more people exiting the home market and going into construction. So I don't know if that's just a temporary glitch, even though the comparison is quarter to quarter. But it's interesting to me to see those land transactions drop 20%. That's a significant number.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge number. But on the flip side of that is the price of the sold land properties is up 52%. I mean, that's borderline astounding, that sort of number.
That is.
I'm going to proffer that is because more of the lower priced land transactions may be not included in our multiple listing service because they're being handled by larger developers, as opposed to your one-off sales of a lot on the north side or a lot out in Las Campanas. So I think that may have to do with the makeup of where those transactions are coming from.
Well, that could also influence that substantial drop in the number of sales too, as well, if that's the case. So that could help answer both those questions. But we're also seeing lots now that haven't moved necessarily in the past decade now finally being sold. And so
Yes.
there is a certain limit on how many are on the market at any given point. Right now, we're not quite at half, but we're getting close to about half as many land listings for sale as there were a year and a half ago. So that market has constricted as much in some ways as the residential existing home sales.
Yes.
I don't think land sales are quite as competitive. You're not seeing 24 offers come in on a piece of land.
Sure.
And so that, I think that is, it's surprising to me that the numbers are down when land is relatively easier to buy.
And it's interesting, if you look at the history of Santa Fe land sales, you will see that there used to be more developers buying a piece of land, subdividing it, and then selling the vacant lots to individual builders and homeowners or somebody who's going to build a house. Compared to today, you don't see much of that. Most all of these larger subdivisions are being bought and developed by a builder who then builds the product and sells the home.
Yeah, a spec or a to be built.
Yes.
Yes.
Interesting. So when did that shift start?
Yeah, I think that shift started after our housing collapse in 2008. Prior to that time, we had a very strong contingency of small local business people who were builders. And there aren't many of them left anymore. You see the larger builders. HomeWise is our biggest local builder, right? And besides HomeWise, you've got Pulte and the large nationals doing these large subdivisions. They're not selling the land. They subdivide it, they build the house and sell the product.
Are prices going to continue at this rate? Or are they going to start to soften a little bit?
I think we're going to continue to see price increases, but not at the same rate that we have been. 30% a year is completely unsustainable. The The concern is, where is inflation going to take us nationally? I think we've all been shocked at every time we get the new CPI number. At first it was 6% and everybody raised their eyebrows, and then it was 7.5% and now it's 8%. That's kind of out of control, and the building market is subject to that. And add into that, we have our local governing agencies who are, they're trying to do a good job taking care of our community. And what they always do is impose more rules and regulations from a building and zoning perspective that end up driving up cost of construction dramatically. I don't think they have any clue about how much impact they have on the cost of housing.
Well, and I think also on the buyer's interest in building, and because of such serious restrictions. We were talking about this earlier. But back to the inflation, don't you think the increased interest rates are going to have an impact on that? And that's why they're increasing them, is to help curb the inflation. Isn't that true?
Yes. That's the Fed's response to an inflationary market. Increase the interest rates to slow down consumption, demand.
Yeah.
So we will see that. It's just we have so little product anyway.
I know.
Santa Fe is a really attractive place to live. If we didn't want our prices to be all over the board, then we shouldn't care about how nice a community it is. But we've made it so nice, it's attractive and appealing to other people. Of course they want to be here, my word.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to be? So I don't see it changing. I think we're going to have a slowdown in the rate of increased values, but I think that's going to be offset by higher interest rates.
So speaking of desirability, on the upper end of the market, the luxury side of the market, we've seen some shifts there as well. I mean, one of the biggest is all those homes that were once 900,000 are now 1.1, 1.2. So we've seen an increase naturally just because all of those have now moved into the 1 million plus range. So we saw an increase of almost 10% right there in terms of number of units sold in this past quarter. There's a large divide yet still between the average asking price and the average selling price though. So the average asking is somewhere around 2.8 and the average selling is right around 1.4. So is that going to start to narrow, or is that going to continue to expand? Because it keeps expanding. And what's causing that?
That's a big difference. I think Santa Fe used to have an extremely slim market above 3 million. And the market was unkind to sellers because of that. Those sales above 3 million were few and far between, and sellers had to discount their prices hugely. Now, $3 million sales are not at all unusual, and the inventory of those properties that we have on the market has gone up significantly.
And they are also selling quickly. Not in 5 minutes, but...
So historically, the properties over 3 million would take years to sell. And yes, now they can sell in 1 month or 6 months.
I'm checking the statistics right now. It looks like the absorption rate right now in the luxury market is right around 2 months.
For properties over $1 million.
For properties over $1 million.
Okay.
Which again, just even 2 years ago, that would have been kind of a shocking number.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been an amazing number. Now, what's also interesting is we've seen some stagnation in terms of the price per square foot. It hasn't quite broken 500 yet. Will that happen this year?
Yes, it will. I'm confident of that. We're seeing more very high-end product hit the market. We're seeing more unique properties come on that are verging on $1,000 a square foot, an unheard of number by Santa Fe standards, but not unusual in other marketplaces. So we will exceed that 500 per square foot number as an average price, I think, in luxury.
So to kind of close this out, Laura, if I'm a buyer right now, what's your advice to me?
Wow. Well, be vigilant. Keep an eye on the market. Be ready to jump. And as soon as you are certain that you want the house, make an offer. There are an awful lot of tools that are available to buyers. If you can do cash cash, consider waiving the appraisal contingency, consider waiving the right to request concessions after inspections, consider an escalation addendum, offer over asking, ask the seller's broker what the seller is looking for. Does the seller want an occupancy agreement? Just keep in mind all of those, and write a nice, clean, tight offer.
So is your comment to not necessarily be discouraged, but just be aware of all the tools that are available?
Be aware of the tools. Think carefully about what you're comfortable using. Pay attention to the market. Get yourself pre-qualified if you're getting a loan. Find a way to do it without a loan, if you can.
This is going to be tough sledding for some folks.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah. So David, if I'm a seller, what's your advice?
This is about risk assessment. And I think whether you're on the seller side or on the buyer side, you need to think through what your risk level is and your tolerance is about jumping into the market now and making it happen versus letting it go. If you're the seller, our prices are historically unheard of. Oh my word. You know, you can get this kind of price and run. You may not be able to get this price next year. But that's the question you need to ask yourself. If you're really holding out for maximum price, are you better off taking the money now, or are you better off waiting to see what happens? Part of that's based on, why do you want to sell? What do you need to do? Are you reinvesting in this market? Are you going into another market? I think it's just a matter of really determining what your life circumstances are and where you're better off.
And that goes for buyers too.
Right.
These are historically high prices. Do you want to be buying in this market?
Right. If you buy in this market and there is a shift, are you happy in that home for 5 to 10 years if you need to wait it out?
Yeah.
Right. You know, those are important questions to ask yourself if you're entering, at least for the first time.
Yeah.
I think it always gets down to, we have been so engendered to thinking of real estate as an investment, because historically it has been extremely strong in that fashion. But it goes back to, why are you buying a home? Or why are you selling a home? Think of those reasons and what is important to you over the long term.
Those are good questions to ask yourself.
Well, and David's point is well taken. We as realtors look at the home and think, what am I going to say if this buyer comes back to me in a year and says, I need to sell? Can I make money on it?
Right. Can they get out from under it?
Yeah.
If need be.
Yeah.
And how do you like to answer that question?
No. No. In a year you won't make money on this. I don't think so. You know, maybe the prices will keep going up. Maybe you will. But no, I tell people, you need to think about this as a long-term investment. You need to think about, well, if I have to sell it in a year or 2 or 3, am I willing to take a loss if the market turns around? So.